responses to your questions and score them according to that yellow score sheet that you should be receiving. The score sheet contains the name of all 6 candidates. And what we would ask is, if you are going to be at more than one public forum, would you please keep your score sheet with you and use it for all the public forums that you will be attending? And then at the end of this 2-day process, you can turn in your score sheet to a board member, either me or John Kaiser over there. You can hand him a score sheet, or Ed Mosier right here, you can hand your score sheet to him. After the last interview on Thursday, if you can't make all the public forums, as soon as you are finished with your last one and you can attend and have your score sheet filled out, please give your score sheet to one of us board members, and we will collect it for you. All of us, I think, plan on being here all of these days, so we'll be around. The Board of Trustees will then tabulate all the score sheets. We'll look at the comments. There's a place for you to comment on the back. So we'll look at the score sheets, we'll read your comments, and then when we have a regularly scheduled study session on February 2nd. After that study session, we are going to go into executive session, and at that time, we will look at all of the score sheets, the comments, the tabulations of the score sheets, all of those things, and we will make a decision at that time about the interim president. We want your comments. We are going to read them. We're going to review the scores. We're going to take all of that input. But please be aware that the final decision on the interim president is a decision for the Board of Trustees. So we are asking for your input and comments into that, but the ultimate decision will be ours. So please say your prayers and give us your hidden strength behind that decision. This will last 1 hour, as I stated before. Dave's running the show. Dave, your turn to take over.
I'll be using a microphone so that everyone can hear. I'm just going to start asking questions. If you have questions that aren't here and you would like to submit them, please put them on a card and we will take a look at them.
Well, we're going to go ahead and start with the first question, which is, given that this is a temporary interim position, why are you interested in this position?
What? Can you hear me? All right. Why am I interested in this position? I kind of touched on this a little bit during the interview. I think I have a really good skill set to help this college in this interim period between your past president and whoever will be your future president. And then from a, that's the perspective I'd like to bring to you as a college. From a personal perspective, I've always learned from every job I've ever taken. And I would look at learning from this job also. I think would be a great opportunity.
Okay, next question. If you are the successful candidate, what do you hope to accomplish during your interim appointment, and what would be your first priority?
That's a little loaded question because the board kind of told me where they're looking at. And really, that's the direction I would take, is from the board. And it makes sense. What they're asking for right now is that this college has had a lot of change, a lot of transition. You've got some challenges. Morale keeps coming up. So it's not starting anything brand new. It's bringing the college together, trying to get things going in a unified direction, and setting up the best situation for the next person that will take the president's job.
Academic programs of study are offered under both the Vice President of Instruction and the Vice President of Workforce and Community Development. How would you ensure academic quality and integrity, consistency, and communication across these two areas within that organizational structure?
That's a long question.
First part, you're working with two vice presidents in two different areas, instruction and workforce community development. How would you integrate between the two of those to ensure integrity and quality of the programs?
Communication is the key to any any well-run organization. I would expect those people to be communicating well together. I have on a much lower level, similar situation at Casper College, where we have two programs that could step on each other's toes very easily. And what we did in that situation is clearly define the roles and responsibilities and what those programs look like at the beginning. And then we've consistently applied those criteria.
How do you view the role of educational services staff, i.e. non-administrators and non-faculty, in the decision-making process?
When we're looking at shared governance, everybody has to have a voice. There needs to be an opportunity for everybody to have input into the bigger process and into the operations of the college. So I'm not sure how it's running through right now, but I would be looking at having a process in place so that everybody has at least an opportunity to have a voice somehow.
LCCC utilizes the Academic Quality Improvement Program, or AQIP, to maintain its accreditation with the Higher Learning Commission. Discuss your familiarity with the AQIP process.
Both institutions that I worked with use the PEAK process. I'm not overly familiar with AQIP, but I do have a background in business, and one of my degrees is a master's in business administration. That quality improvement is a consistent theme throughout business. And what you want to do is have a process set up so that there is truly that quality improvement occurring, that there are benchmarks and measures set up so that you're not just saying that you're making those improvements. There isn't just a committee, but there's actually progress being made. And those need to, that needs to start with defining what success looks like when you're done. And that's setting up those measures on the front end.
How do you build trust within the institution?
I made that communication. I think it's the only way that you build trust, and it's going to be clear and consistent communication. And that you're sharing with people what it is you want to see accomplished. And trust doesn't happen overnight. Trust takes an awful long time, especially if you've been in a situation where that hasn't occurred or you've had a violation of trust. So it's just a long process, but it's a process that requires consistency and honesty.
Over the past 5 years, enrollment at LCCC has grown by 15%. In several areas, including instruction, the number of employees has not kept pace. What strategies would you use to address this issue?
What a great problem to have, huh? And while it's occurring at a lot of community colleges, I'm currently at Casper College, and we're also experiencing consistent growth, quite a bit of growth in the last few years. Anytime you've got a major change like that, you need to take a look at how you're staffed. I've had that experience in a previous program when I was at the University of North Dakota, a program that grew extremely rapidly. And I knew there was a significant problem. I really thought I was going to come to work one day and see my image burning in effigy. And my staff was really supportive, but they were tired. And so it's taking a look at where you actually need to have people placed. And it's my understanding that this institution has already started down that path of looking at how you organize and what roles people are playing. So I look forward to participating in that process.
What do you feel is a satisfactory part-time to full-time faculty ratio within a program?
There isn't one exactly satisfactory. It depends on the institution. It depends on the program. It depends on the students. It's a philosophical decision. The people at LCCC need to decide what LCCC looks like. And so there's no magic number. There's no magic ratio. So it's taking a look at what you want LCCC to be for your students and for your faculty.
What new initiatives would you propose as interim president for LCCC?
Okay, again, a lot of questions we were looking for. None. No, really, there's a lot of work here. And in the end, we will be setting up the institution so that when the next president takes over, things may be in a little better place.
What is your philosophy of how to promote a fast-growing branch campus?
The branch campus has to be part of the overall campus. I don't like an us-them kind of situation. Your branch campus is part of your campus. And so the promotion of it needs to be as strong as what you're experiencing at your main campus.
What do you see is the role of a developmental education program here at LCCC, and do you envision any changes in the current system?
Little disadvantage, I'm not sure what the current situation is. But of course, your development program is the program set up to help students succeed, help give them a good base and move forward. So, sorry, I don't know how on that.
Please tell us about an original idea of yours that you were able to implement successfully.
It's not necessarily an original idea. There's a very rapidly growing program at Casper College called the Ocean Lifelong Learning Institute. We call it OLLI for short. There are 125, 26 of these around the country, almost all of them at universities. I think there's only 4 that are at community colleges. And I knew about that program when I went to Casper College, and I knew that the Ocean Foundation wanted to have at least one OLLI in every state, and I knew why we had one. So we were set up very well to go after that. Ocean grants are by invitation only. You have to prove that you fit their model. It took me a year to get an invitation from the Ocean Foundation. We set up that program 20 years ago. The Ocean Foundation gave us a grant of $100,000 the first year. And then as we met their benchmarks, $100,000 for the following 2 years. The role I played in that program, not only getting the funding, that was the initial part, but setting up a program that really worked for Casper. The nice thing about the Ocean Foundation is they set very broad criteria. You need to gear the program towards people with their turnover. It needs to be membership-based. And it needs to be non-credit. And so what they recommend is kind of a liberal arts. All the classes you wanted to take when you're younger and you didn't get to take them to do to finish up your major, it's all those classes without the homework and without the assignments. My role in setting up that program is to make sure that that didn't conflict with another program we had on campus. We had community education. It would be really easy to have those 2 programs conflict. But to set up a program that the community would really gravitate towards. When thinking about at the end of our 3-year operations, one of our goals was to have 500 members in our OLLI program. We would make us eligible for $1 million endowment. We had 600, it's a terrible number, 666. Okay, what can we do? The number's what it was. But 666 people in our OLLI program, very vibrant program. And we did receive $1 million endowment. Yeah, the nice thing, we have a generous state, and the state matched $882,000, almost $2 million.
At your interview, you gave several examples of leading at a departmental level. How do you envision leading at an organizational level, and how would that be different? How will you be effective at the organizational level?
I think a lot of skills for running a good department, a lot of the same skills you're going to use at an institutional level. It's the communication, it's the sharing of information, it's being organized, it's setting up goals and objectives, it's working with people, it's building teams, and building relationships. All of those things apply at the higher level. The other experience that I talked about at the interview is being the chair of the Policy and Procedure Committee. The nice thing about that committee is it truly absolutely has to have an institutional view, a big broad picture view. And that's been a great experience for me.
Why do you believe your experience, knowledge, and skills make you the best candidate for this position?
Almost. In fact, I can't think of a situation where I've achieved something really big on my own. I think everything I've achieved has been through working with other people. And the skills that I possess, and I think are my strongest skills, are building teams, building relationships, getting people to kind of go in one direction. And as I look at LCCC, and I'm aware of some of the things that you've been experiencing, I think it's a really needed thing at this time.
You may have heard that the Board of Trustees has ordered an organizational audit. Please provide your comments, views on implementing the restructuring, and how did you handle the tough personnel decisions that are recommended from the audit?
I've never been involved in an organizational audit. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what you find out. I think you'll probably have things that you are pleased with and things that maybe you're not so pleased with. But implementing, don't know what that's going to look like in the end, but it will probably involve transitioning people from one job to another, or maybe even, hate to say it, but people leaving the organization. And that sometimes can be achieved through attrition, which is the most painful of the ways for that to happen. But before we get to that part, about talking about having people leave the organization, looking at where they might fit best. It's really hard at this point in time to look at LCCC, even for product workers that are so familiar with your institution, to know what that's going to look like in the end. But I hate to see that, start that process with an end result in mind, that you know what the result is going to be before you start the process. The process should lead to that result. So, tough decisions.
What is your plan for the first 100 days if you get this position?
First 100 days, wow. We're in this position for 6 months to a year. And the very first thing is, I need to have a good working relationship with the board. Clearly, the oversight organization, entity for this organization, they set the tone. That's going to be my first objective, is to have a good working relationship with the board, to define what that relationship is, to know what their goals and objectives are. I think it's also important that I play a role on campus. I get to meet, there's a lot of people on the campus, but I start to get to meet people and understand how this organization works. And I think it's important for a president to have a community exposure. But the president is the face of the college and needs to be in the community. Community needs to know the president.
If you were hired as the interim president, you find out in the beginning of your job that there are major changes that need to be made on campus. How would you approach implementing these changes? And would you start immediately or gather more information?
I don't think it's good ever for somebody to come in brand new and say, this is done, this is changed, that's how we go from there. You have to come from a base of knowledge, and that just takes a little bit of time. So my first process would be to gather information, to talk to people that are here, that have been here, that know the organization, to get a lot of different opinions on how this organization runs. But no, I don't walk in the door the first day and make changes.
What is your style in dealing with employee personality conflict?
This between me and the employee or something? Really pleasant situation when you've got conflict, but usually there's a base for that conflict, and it takes time to kind of go back and see where that's happened. I'm able to go back and talk about things for a while, but you can kind of ground them there. And so learning the background of the situation, but then moving forward, figuring out what steps we need to take for resolution. And I've had to do that many times. I gotta tell you, not everybody leaves those situations happy. It just doesn't occur. Sometimes you make those tough decisions and somebody's not happy. But you gotta make the best decision for the organization.
You are, as you say, big on communication. Could you comment about the role that policies, procedures, and the consistent application of these have to do with trust and clarity of goals?
I was made chair of the Policy and Procedure Committee. I don't remember, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. It's been a successful but very challenging process. It's a new committee. We didn't have an official policy and procedure committee before. We did have sort of an ad hoc one, nobody knew who was on it. I gotta tell you, that doesn't set up an atmosphere of trust at all. And so I'm pleased that everybody knows who's on the policy committee. When it goes to implementing policies in a consistent manner, that's one of the issues we have. There is a formal policy committee, the policy committee at Casper College. We have very poor policies. Very poorly written policies that are open to a lot of interpretation, and they have been over the years. And so one of the goals of the policy committee is to write an extremely easy to read policy that can be interpreted in very narrow form, so very broad interpretation. But it's important to follow those policies. Now, keep in mind, the policy is a broad view of a situation. What policies do is they help us answer regular questions without having to rethink all the time. So a policy, a leave policy, it says how often, how many vacation days you have. So everybody doesn't have to make a separate decision. You don't have to think about that every time. Policies are that overall guidance. There are exceptions to policies. There are lots of policies to have enough flexibility that when there needs to be an exception made, there is. I can give one example. We have a very limited leave policy. I need to rephrase that. We have ample leave. We have limited leave without pay, 10 days in a year. If I take this position, I'm certainly going to be gone for more than 10 days. And so what I'm asked the president of Casper College is to grant me a year's leave, and he's gone to the board to discuss that. So that would be an exception to the policy. We want to be able to do that when the situation warrants, but it shouldn't be a frequent occurrence. Otherwise, you should look at your policy again.
How do you organize a $60 million budget?
How do you organize a $60 million budget? I'm hoping we have a budget to start with. Because we have a new process here. We have a new process here. Your budget is really a goal statement. Where you spend your money is where you think things are important. And so that's my vision of budgets is you look at what's important, what needs to be funded at the organization, and that's where you spend your money.
Tell us about a time when you worked as a leader to bring together different campus organizations to work toward a common goal, and what were the results?
my best one is the policy committee. Sorry to use the same example, but the policy committee is made up of 2 people from our staff alliance, 2 people from our faculty alliance, and 2 people from our administrative alliance. So we've got 3 different employee groups represented on the policy committee. And when we went to set up that policy committee, one of the very important things to think about is that these people were here to represent certain groups. They were there to provide information about those groups. They were not there to advocate for those groups. They were there to have an institutional view. And we set that up as a goal of the committee from the beginning. You can't have a policy committee that's always fighting territory. And so they had to have an institutional view, and they needed to look at it from their employee group, but they needed to look at it from the overall health and well-being of the college. And that's what we've set up. And it's actually been a really good experience.
I have one and it's long, so I saved it for towards the end.
Good man.
No, it's just long. So after I've read it to you, I will give it to you so you can see the parts. Okay. Would you support LCCC cooperation in the startup of an off-campus, non-credit community education program targeting disadvantaged youth and adults with an emphasis on diversifying Wyoming's economy by creating interest and action among the Wyoming populace to bring new, compatible industry to Wyoming, and with a focus on, number 1, an overview of the globalization economic model contrasted with, not sure, with the outdated, national state economic model, and 2, a practicum and field component to give students some idea of the marketing, science, math, reading, and writing skills needed at a professional level. Okay, I'm going to stop there because there's 2 more parts to this. I'm going to let you chew on that one for a little bit.
I think you lost me at the beginning.
Okay. What I think basically the question targets, would you support creating a non-credit community education program targeting the disadvantaged youth, and what can we do to help them realize what is important in an education?
I really need more information before I would do that. Like, who's serving this group already? Are they being served at all? Is the college the best option for serving that group? Is there a partnership opportunity for the college to serve that group? I think there's a lot of questions that need to be asked before that decision could be made.
What are your views on creating an overview of the latest cutting-edge concepts and our technologies of cleaner green energy production and the distribution and use of such?
I think the role the college plays there is 2. One is training, if we think there's a viable market to train people in the green industries. And sometimes that's just adding a green component to some things that we already do. This whole big conversation about green and what's a green job. Green job is actually oftentimes just adapting the current job that we have. You might be an architect. You might learn about LEED. That's greening your job. The other part that the college can play, and I think this is a great role for our college, is educating the community about what green is, what green jobs are available, what green initiatives are out there, what things they can do to be green. So I think there's a great opportunity to kind of have a public forum about what that looks like.
Okay, the last component of the question is, tell us what you know or what you think about an overview of climate change science as a field of study.
No matter how I answer that, I'm going to alienate somebody. I think there's still some more research to be done. I definitely think there's changes occurring. I don't know if they're natural changes. I don't know if they're man-made, man-driven changes. I don't think we have the end answers yet, but I'm glad people are researching this, and I think it's a fascinating field.
Are there other questions that I have not picked up yet? Anyone? That is all the questions that I have been given for this forum. So thank you, and please accept our gratitude for answering